Hello, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today we have as our special guest Enrico Schaefer, who is the managing partner from Traverse Legal, all the way from Traverse City.
All the way from Traverse City, Michigan.
Well, welcome to the program. I'm really excited to have you on the program today because you are an attorney, you're a managing partner at Traverse Legal, and we're going to talk about what you do in your law firm and also talk about some specialty items that have to do with the law and the internet. But before we get started into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got from down here in Michigan and in southeastern Michigan up to Traverse City?
Sure. It's been a long road, I'll tell you that, but I'm sure happy to be where I am today. I was born and raised in Detroit. Father is an attorney. Older brother always knew he wanted to be an attorney. It's the one thing I always knew from my earliest memory is that I did not want to be an attorney.
Really? And somehow you made it there.
Somehow that's the gift that God gave me, and I ran with it. So, but I was down in Detroit, practiced in Detroit for until I was 30, and met a girl who was heading up north after school was out in June. Followed her up and never came back. So
That's
very
amazing.
happy to be in Traverse City, Michigan, and have been up there now for about, I'd say, 12, 13 years.
And I bet a lot of people envy you. I kind of do. I mean, what a wonderful place to live and work. It's so beautiful.
It is, and people is really special because when your friends and acquaintances come up to visit you, they do envy you, and it's not because of the house you live in or the money you make, it's because of where you live.
Yeah, the water and the beauty, and the thing is that you have a global practice, yet you're in Traverse City, which is wonderful.
It is, and I always say I get to go home to paradise. I mean, if I was in New York or Detroit or anyone else, I'd still have to come home when I was done in LA or Miami or where have you. But I get to take that little extra puddle jump up to Traverse City and end up in paradise.
And they probably have a pretty good airport. I've seen it. They have a lot of planes going in and out of there. It's busy.
They do, and it's a brand new airport. And Traverse City, through the entire economic downturn, has continued to grow.
That's fantastic.
And become more diverse. A lot of the automotive folks who were laid off all had cabins and cottages up north, and a percentage of them decided, you know what, I'm just going to go up north. And there's a tremendous entrepreneurial spirit up there. No one wakes up in the morning to work for GM or Ford. They get up to think of something, an idea, and to run with it and to create it. And so the entire town is really filled with entrepreneurs.
That's fantastic. I should move the show up there.
Okay, come on up anytime.
I know. Let's take a step back. And what was it that, I don't know, what did you study as an undergrad, and what was it that made you go down this path of law? I always like to understand how people went there, because you said you weren't interested in law.
Sure. So I went to Albion College, and I had way too much fun, as many people do in college. And so as I got into my third senior semester...
Your third senior semester,
okay.
Third
senior semester, I called my dad. I said, hey, I graduate this semester. And he said, well, you go to grad school, you can get a job. Or then he introduced the concept of, or you go to law school. And I never really had thought about it. And I didn't want to get a job. I knew that. So law school it was. And as much as I struggled at Albion to focus, I excelled in law school, straight A's, won every award there was to
Fantastic.
Win. Perhaps more awards than any single student had ever won in the 100-plus year history of the school. So for some reason, it's the way I was raised, and it just came out of me at that point in my life. And I started into practicing law, doing different things: automotive product liability defense, mass tort class action, and asbestos. And when I did the mass tort and asbestos at age 30, I hit a birthday that just made me rethink my entire life. How did I get here? Because I got good grades in law school, and so I quit everything and moved into my car and drifted around the country for a while to kind of figure out what I wanted to do.
And this was at 30?
This is at 30. And then by the age of, say, 38 or so, I had my second child, and my wife had a friend who said, hey, I think he could get a job down in Traverse City practicing law. And I got back into the practice of law after doing some internet and technology startups. And then I blended those two things together. And worked for a traditional law firm for a few years up there, and decided that there was a better way, a more innovative way to practice law, and really recreated the business of law from the ground up on the single premise of what makes sense, not how did they do it yesterday?
For the past 200 and 300,000
Exactly.
years. You know, what I find so interesting is that, you know, you took a break and you did some other things and really, you know, you just didn't get caught up in the day-to-day and then just let another decade or two flow by. You stopped and reassessed yourself and got real in touch with yourself about what you wanted to do next.
Yeah, I followed my path. I mean, what we do in our law firm is idea protection, and they say we're becoming an idea economy, and I see that every single day.
Interesting, because I was going to say we're information economy, but you took we're an idea economy. Yeah, how did you get into intellectual property law, by the way? Why did you go that route, as opposed, you know, you started in some other areas, you know, product liability and tort. How did you go down?
Sure. So when I was living in Salt Lake City on my personal journey, I had a friend who somehow tracked me down and said, hey, I have a friend who owns a company that's involved in a big intellectual property trademark dispute case in Boston in federal court, and the big law firm had basically bled them dry up through the preliminary injunction hearing. So they had no more money and they needed someone to represent them. And so I said, sure, that sounds good. I came back to Michigan and met my now wife and did that case for 5 years and ended up loving intellectual property law and loving the power of an idea and helping protect those ideas for companies.
Yeah, it's such an, I mean, that's my favorite area of law that I've noticed for myself when I'm studying. It's fascinating because, you know, ideas should be shared freely, but we also have the idea of commerce and the economy and value, and those have to be worked in it too, and the idea of fairness. And for some people who believe everything should be free, it's you know, kind of a balancing act, because we have a whole part of society that thinks nothing should be protected, but they don't understand the protection of ideas is what creates innovation. Otherwise, nobody'd innovate anything if they didn't feel like they'd profit from it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail exactly on the head. You've just described in a nutshell exactly what intellectual property law is, and the tension between those two ideas of there is no original idea. Everything is shared. It's derived from something that you saw before and then innovated on top of, and if it's unique enough of an innovation on something that already existed, then you potentially can protect that idea from others using it by patent. If it's a brand, you're going to protect the brand so that no one else can basically pawn off on your brand. If it's a copyright, an original work of authorship, whether it's a book or a painting, you know, we have to protect these people, because how else would an author ever get paid if they couldn't protect their book from copying, or an artist, or what have you. So, but there is this healthy tension between the fact that everything is borrowed to some extent and importance of sharing versus we have to be able to monetize our unique ideas in order for commerce to work.
Now, with the kind of work that you do, because it's intellectual property and trademarks and patents and such, that type of litigation is going to be under the jurisdiction of the federal courts.
Sure.
So you spend, what, 95% of your time dealing in the federal court structure?
Absolutely. So almost everything that we do, there are some exceptions.
Do you miss the other stuff? Do you miss
No, a federal court is just such a nice place to be most of the time. I mean, the judges are tough, but you know you're going to get the attention of two well-paid law clerks who, you know, did well in law school. You're going to get the attention of a judge whose docket is not so crazy that they're dealing with 80 motions on a Friday morning, as happens in state court. So it's really a pleasure to practice in federal court, and it's just one of the benefits of the business model that I chose, is that that's where I get to live most days.
And you actually like getting up in the morning and going to work.
I love getting in my kneeling chair in the morning in paradise.
And